I was so grateful that I had my mom with me. I was so grateful that I had laces inside my shoes. I was so grateful that I had a winter jacket on. I was so grateful that the bus stop that we were staying at, right, had four big glasses, right, and the door could
In a way, it's
close.
good to fail in those first 2 years, right? Ideally in the first year, right? Because I would argue 20% of the businesses should probably
What are
fail,
the
right?
habits for success? Successful people have these successful habits that they follow consistently every day. So in this video we are sharing those shocking habits that all of these successful people have. If you like this video, please don't forget to click on the thumbs up and please subscribe the channel if you haven't done so. So without any further ado, let's start the video. I saw your clips and I saw like people talking about you, like they always mention like you are very resilient. You have you always like face adversity, face like tough decisions in your life, and then still you came out a better person like from that. Can I ask like what does resilience mean to you?
Well, it means different things to different people, but I think resilience ultimately just means that you didn't give up. You fought to the very end. You know, sometimes the battle is not going to be won, but yet you're not going to close your eyes prematurely to the fight. And but I think that, you know, in terms of resilient people, and I want your listeners to realize this, is that this is something that you can learn. You know, there's tactics to be, better at being resilient. You know, there's a lot of things that might be thrown your way, and there's different techniques to deal with it. And also, um, in this day of mental health and mental illness and mindset, I think we try to take on things too often just ourselves, right? It's, if you're dealing with something in private, too many people have committed suicide. Too many people have been down on themselves in terms of what they're doing, and it's not because they may not be resilient. It's just because their resilient has a certain level. If you keep it in, right? You don't tell people. You're afraid. You're ashamed of what your situation is. So for me, I had two choices to make in my life, and one choice was to just give up and essentially be this disabled kid who relied on my mom and dad, and um, didn't give life a chance. Or it could be take hold of what I had in front of me, my new reality, i.e., being a kid with one leg, and how do you deal with that, and how do you deal with the public pressure of kids seeing you that way, and kids can be cruel at that age. You just kind of make the best of it, right? So my talk was talking to people, and trying to make the best of it. And then you realize, especially we're talking about it like in the 80s, people don't care. I mean, you have this idea that I've got one leg, and for a long time I thought people cared. Well, they don't, right? And I think these days, when we're in the 2021 and going forward, people are a lot more tolerant of our differences than we ever have been. Not to say that it's certainly by any stretch of the imagination, the we're there. There's still people who will hate. There's still people who will, get on you for what you look like, your
Mhm.
your skin color, what you wear, how you look, whatever. But there is there's some changes that's been happening, I believe, um, and I think that you just need to band together. And I was just trying to, part of being resilient is showing your strengths, right? And I think showing my strengths, I was able to make it a little bit better.
And you are such a leader, great leader yourself, and now you're also like in a managing role. How you would teach someone, or how would you like suggest someone like to be more resilient? Like what are some tactics you would suggest? Like you can like try using this, you can try using that, and then you can maybe like become more tolerant, become more resilient to that factor.
Well, I think that it comes down to just analyzing the situation.
Mhm.
If you're in a certain situation, just learn as much as you can. Obviously, when you're younger, resiliency at that age just becomes with that fight or flight kind of mentality. But when you're older, and if something happens to you, and just learn that you don't need to have all the answers.
Mhm.
In terms of managing, or in terms of being a leader, in terms of trying to overcome things, you can rely on other people to help you, right? Other people who have expertise. And so in terms of like resiliency of moving up, It's just about increasing your scope, and increasing your responsibility. But perhaps life experiences. That's why they call it life experiences in terms of what you're doing, right? My management style is not just based on, the time that I've been a manager or my work experiences. My management style is based on years of what I've seen on a swim team, or previous positions, or trying to be the leader on the swim team. And you may often hear that people say leaders definitely need a title to lead, right? So leaders can be anybody, and I would say that a lot of leaders, you have to be resilient, because there's a lot of things coming your way, and you have to be able to deal with them. So, take a look at 5 different leaders that in your own personal life, and think, do I know if that person's resilient? And then further than that, if you want to be better at resiliency, and you say to somebody, I think that person's a leader. And why is that person a leader? And then so talk to that person, especially if you want to get better. Like, say, listen, one-on-one, I see that you lead this company, you're the CEO, you're wherever the case may be. I assume you didn't get there by fluke or chance. So what is it that has made you successful, and what has it made you resilient to what you're doing? And I think once we get that growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, and I think for anybody watching, I would suggest going out and Googling growth mindset versus fixed mindset, because it's a very big thing in terms of our development as people, being open to different things. But when you're fixed, it's like that ball is, this phone is red. No, it's green. No, it's red. No, it's clearly green, but people just are not open enough to change their minds. So
yeah.
And
like one thing I just caught my interest, like you said, that sometimes people say like success is like, is it like by fluke or not? Like, could you please tell me, can success be achieved overnight? Like sometimes I see like on a social media, like they become successful overnight, but I believe that there might be like a process behind that to become successful overnight. Like there might be hard work, but what would you say, like, can success be achieved overnight, like in very short period? And if not, like, then what is the process to become successful?
Well, if you go tonight and buy a lottery ticket and win tonight, then I guess maybe that's your definition of success, being a millionaire. Then all the power to you. But generally, when you think about success, and then overcoming obstacles and doing your part, it's more along the lines of when you see an iceberg, and you may see 20% of that iceberg above the water, but 80% of it's below the water. And the stuff that's below the water is all the things that have gone into making that iceberg where it is, right? If it was a tiny little iceberg, it's not going to be 20 feet above the water, because it's going to grow until you start seeing the results of the build. So certainly working together in terms of success. I'm very big on teamwork. I'm very big on everybody helping each other out. And the idea of teamwork to me is like, together everyone achieves more. And you're not going to, it's kind of like dieting, losing weight. You're not going to like all of a sudden lose 20 pounds overnight, because if you do, you're probably going to gain it back the next day. It's a gradual process for most people. Now that time may vary from 2 weeks to 2 months to 3 months, but how does that change? If you're playing the piano, you're going to all of a sudden know how to play the piano in a week or two? I doubt it, right? You may be able to have a little bit of a instrumental going on, but you're probably not going to be able to truly learn it. Or a language, it's not going to take it overnight. So certainly things take time. Things worth working for take time. But honestly, that's why it's so sweet, or bittersweet, I guess, at the end. The Olympics are every 4 years. If the Olympics were held every year or every 6 months or whatever, then it wouldn't be as big a deal when you win or you do well, right? So there's a reason that there's a quadrennial. There's a reason. Well, now it's 5 years, but there's a reason that's in place. It's because people realize that it takes a lot of time to be successful, and the Olympics or Paralympics, in my case, are a metaphor for life. You get in there and you just keep moving, right? And it's a series of goal setting. Short-term goals lead into long-term goals. What's a short-term goal? So long-term goals typically within 1 year of setting them. So the short-term goals help that. So where am I after this month? Where am I after month 2? How fast should I go in the pool? what's my goals at work? Do I have monthly goals to reach the long-term goals? These things take time. So I would say everything that I've sort of accomplished in my life takes more than a couple days. That's for sure.
I remember, like, I could be wrong, but I actually heard, or maybe I actually read from a book. It says that 20% of the business fail in their just first 2 years, and maybe 40 or 45% of businesses fail in their first 5 years. And if I'm not wrong, I believe one of the most common reasons for a business failure in these like early years is that they ran out of their capital money, or they just ran out of the funds. What you would suggest to make it a scalable business, or to have a business in the long term? How can a small business owner or young entrepreneurs can prepare themselves so they don't face this problem in the future?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, the thing is, right? I mean, in a way, it's good to fail in those first 2 years, right? Ideally in the first year, right? Because I would argue 20% of the businesses should probably fail, right? Because not every concept is great. Should you stop pursuing it because it's a bad concept? No, right? Because if you don't pursue it, how will you learn in order to create your next business to be the most successful business, right? So that learning is required, right? Now, how hard you fall is up to you, right? It all depends on how much have you invested, how much have you put in everything, how much have you not validated. It all depends on how hard you will fall. So there's a process where you can soften the fall and make sure that you get the best learnings out of it, in essence, right? But 20%, I would say, of the businesses are supposed to fail. So it's okay to fail, right? We can't look at them and say, oh, shoot, that's a failure, right? No, they are supposed to fail, and glad that they failed in the first 2 years. It's worse for the businesses who failed in the 5 years, that 45%. That's a sad story.
Also,
because 5 years, because you suffered for 5 years, potentially for something which you could have suffered in the first year and got rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Either because you did not fail fast, you did not want to make mistakes, you somehow found a way to string it together, or you did not learn fast enough, right? That you were able to correct your mistakes and keep on improving, right? Failure doesn't mean the business is zero, right? Failure could mean, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to grow 20% every year. This year I only grew 10%. There has to be something that I need to look at. Oh, I grew 20%. I met me, but I really know based on the market, I could have grown 50%. So whatever that aspect is, really figuring, okay, you know what? None of that is failure, but what can I learn from here? How can I get it even better, right? So constantly being in that curious mindset, that inquisitive mindset, to constantly look at where you can improve. That's important, right? Now, that being said, I mean, again, a lot of that happens because of all the factors that I mentioned to you, right? I mean, it's not easy to start a company. It's not easy to build a business. And it's definitely not easy to try and do it by one individual, right? So, which is why the right solution, the right problem, the right solution, the right team, the right open-mindedness and coachability, because one person cannot, I mean, when you start a business, I would say there are at least 100,000 different things that you need to learn in terms of skills as an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur doesn't learn 100,000 skills. What happens? Either they hire people who can cover a portion of that, and the rest, whatever they haven't covered, will go away, or they decide to ignore vast majority of it. Because you can't do 100,000 things, right? You can either hire people or just ignore and do whatever you can. I mean, yeah, you're burning candle, you are not sleeping at all, you're completely working hard, which is all good, right? I'm completely for working hard, but you are trying to do that without necessarily being on the right path, in essence, right? And what does that mean is you're trying to learn 100,000 things, but you're only able to cover, let's say, I don't know, 100 of those skills, in essence, right? So at the end of it, you have to find ways to manage that, in essence, right? One is by focus. When we don't have a focus, we try to do too many things as a business, either too many services, too many products, too many different audiences we want to create. All of those create clutter in our mind, right? And as a result of that, actually it was supposed to be 5,000. We created 100,000 tasks for us, right? So first, in our mind, if you focus and try solve the first problem first, do a great job at it, then go to the second problem, because now you have resources in order to do that. That makes it a lot easier in essence, right? Then hiring the right team so that you don't have to do all the 10,000, 100,000 things by yourself. You have people to share, but still stay focused. So there are only 5,000 tasks, and you have people who can do 5,000 tasks. Now they can do really great job at whatever task that they are supposed to do and whatever aligned with their skills in essence, right? So that's one thing that's important. A lot of times it's not possible to do that because either we are not focused, we don't have the right resources and whatnot. The second part about that is the system as well, right? I mean, there are not as many, while Canada is a great place to start a business, right? I mean, in India, I always question myself, could I have started a business in the same way that I started in Canada, right? Because I did not take any capital. I did not have any savings. I started a business saying, okay, let me sell apps to clients. Whatever money I make, I'll put back into the business. I'll sell the next app, put it in the business. That's how I started it, right? I mean, I didn't have any capital. I always think about, could I have started a business in that way in India, right? And my question is, yeah, Canada is a great place that way to start a business. It's a lot easier to start a business. Not necessarily the best place to grow a business. The ecosystem still needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of refinement in order to do that in essence. And a lot of that is vetting, right? I mean, the problem is when it becomes an easy place to start business, the negative aspect of it is those 20% that should have failed, that still come into the fore in essence, right? So the system needs refinement, to be very honest. I mean, we are creating a venture right now that helps startups and scale ups get the right capital, get the right funding and stuff like that, because we see that there is a gap in the market from that point of view. But the most important aspect from that business owner point of view is planning, right? As simple as that. Like basics of cash flow planning. How do you ensure that you have enough money or enough resources, right? Now, resources is a factor of either cash that you have in savings or investment or whatever, and the arms that you have, right? I mean, I have 2 arms. I'm not paying myself salary when I start my business. Okay, here you go. These 2 arms are worth whatever, 100,000, 200,000 a year, 50,000 a year, whatever you call it. Okay, so you have that capital plus you have 100,000. Okay, now I got a friend of mine to say, hey, you are great at doing this thing. I'm good at building this. You are great at selling this. Why don't you join my business? Okay, great. Now you got 2 more arms, right? So now you had 200,000 in resources and you have a capital of 50,000, right? Now the planning of, okay, 300,000, how long is it going to last you? What all do you need to do till your next point of inflection of resources? Where are those resources going to come from? Either you get investment or ideally you make revenues yourself, right? How long to make that revenue? Let's be realistic about it. Let's be positive about it. Let's create those scenarios. Best case scenario, within 4 months, I'll start making revenue that, okay, fine. I've convinced my friend, he doesn't need to take salary for 1 year. He agrees with that. I've convinced myself, I don't need to take salary for 1 year. Okay, fine. So I'm okay. Both of us are okay for a year, right? Okay, that's fine. But my business still demands cash. Yeah. It requires whatever. It requires marketing dollars or if you're building an app, dollars to create the app or whatever that is. So in terms of within 4 months, this 300,000 of overall resources is going to deplete. So within the 4 months, what do I need to do? I need to either generate enough revenue or get investment so that I hit that target in essence, right? If you ignore that target, what's going to happen? It's going to eventually fail anyways. But if you hit that target and if you miss that target, then you know, okay, what do I need to do? Now I need to question. I'm not on the right path. Do I need to pivot? Do I need to switch my strategy? What really went wrong? And then accordingly continue charting that out. So that planning is very important to make sure that whatever resources you have are in line with what milestones that you have to grow the business. Take the first, when you start the business, look at that first milestone as your goal post and see how you can get enough resources to get there, right? And if you plan that way, things will align, you'll find different ways, you'll figure out solutions.
Amazing.
We're talking about Olympics, we're talking about games, but could you tell me, was there any moment in your life you felt like, I don't want to get up, I just lost my thing, I don't want to get up, I want to quit? Was there any moment in your life and what you did to get past that?
Harpreet, plenty of moments, man. Plenty of moments. I grew up tough. I grew up rough. I grew up. I've probably seen more things at the age of 10 than most people in their 60s and 70s have seen. But I realized this in life. Every experience that we go through, even if we don't understand it initially, serves a purpose down the road. But we often don't know what that purpose may be until we get through those storms, right? When I was homeless at 13, for example, my mom and I were staying at a bus stop, right, in the middle of wintertime. We came to Canada for a better life, and here we are, looking like we took 70 steps backwards, right? And those were some dark times in my life. Didn't know where our next meal was going to be, didn't know where we were going to stay, didn't know what that even looked like, right? And even the mentality of some of the things that I had to overcome to be able to continue thinking that, I am expecting of good things, that I should have good things in my life. Because sometimes when you're in a dark spot, all you can see is the dark spot and you can't see the light. And when all you can see is the dark spot, your thoughts, they become dark too, right? But in that moment, I realized and learned the power of gratitude, right? Even though that was such a dark time in my life, I was so grateful that I had my mom with me. I was so grateful that I had laces inside my shoes. I was so grateful that I had a winter jacket on. I was so grateful that the bus stop that we were staying at, right, had 4 big glasses, right, and the door could close. You know what I'm saying? So even in those moments, I realized this. So a person who is in a dark spot, it's a tough situation. You don't know how you're going to get through it, and you're just frustrated, panicking, thinking, man, take a moment. And I mean, really take a moment and dig deep and say to yourself, what is one thing that I am grateful for today, right? Just one thing. It doesn't matter how small it may be, right? Because when you're in a dark spot, you have to shift your mindset in a way that allows you to think a positive thought. A positive thought can lead you to a positive action. Even if you only have one positive thought, that can be enough to help you get through that day. Right? And once you can get up, right? If you're having a tough spot, you're in the bed and you're thinking, man, geez, I don't know how I'm going to get up today and finish through this day. Bills may be piling up, pressure from here and there. It's like, man, if you wake up and you say, wow, I woke up in a bed today. Okay, that is something to help pick you up, right? If you wake up and you say, man, like I woke up with clothes today, that is something to pick your feet up and get it on the ground. Right? Gratitude is about momentum. Positive thoughts is about energy current, right? Once you bring the momentum and you bring it with positive energy, man, that will help you, right? Start with gratitude so it helps your state of mind to think positive, and that will lead to one positive action, right? I never in my life try to build Rome all in one day. It doesn't work. Right? I try and move with the strength that I have for that day. I look at it like this, Harpreet, before we move on, man. Whether your phone is charged to 100% or 1%, it still works the same, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So as long as it doesn't die, it's still going to work the same. So as long as you have breath in your body, even if your situation isn't ideal, if you continue to show up, something good will happen. Because I'm telling you right now, every season has an expiration date, and you do not know when the season of hardship is turning its course, right? I have a saying from a song that I always say to myself when I'm having a hard moment, man. It goes like this, it's turning around for me, right? And I would repeat that, it's turning around for me, it's turning around for me. There are some things that I've been saying that same sentence for 4 years now. It hasn't come yet, but I believe it's turning around for me in this area, right? So that's what I would say to that question, man.
Oh man, I also remember like you mentioned in your book, like you were sharing your personal story, and that's why like, let me tell you, like I really loved your book, and one of the reasons is that like you really shared your personal story, like you didn't try to hide anything, man. And there was one moment like in your childhood, you said your family couldn't afford to have food, your family couldn't afford to have a light in the house. And then you had a 2-year-old brother who was asking, hey man, like why we don't have any lights? Man, how old were you like when that happened?
So I was in high school, so I was about 15, 16. Um, man, it was one of those positions where I didn't want him to grow up too early, like I had to,
Yeah.
right? Because I believe as kids, a, a young child should have a childhood, right? And so for me, in that moment, the exact story you're talking about, you know, I knew the situation of what it was. I knew where the future was going. I knew that something was about to come. You see, when you are in and you find like so much friction coming your way, like so much pull, right? So much chaos. Usually there's a breakthrough coming around the corner. And this is the time when you have to hold on, right? So when he was saying, why didn't we have lights? I switched the mindset of saying, oh man, this is just a game, right? This is just a game, right? And here's the game. Whoever turns the light on first, that person loses the game,
Wow.
right? So I turned it into a game, even though reality is, even if you turned on the light, we wouldn't have had any either, right? But I wanted him to still have that joyful presence of a child, right? Because I never really had that growing up. My path was a little bit different, right? But when you look at the youth, you can find joy in them, right? And it's a hard time for them right now, especially with the pandemic and all these other things. But the youth should always, and we must do our best as people to never allow them to lose that spirit of joy, right? Because joy is something you can take with you in good times, in dark times. You can always have joy. And so for him in that situation, I wanted him to be a kid. Let's treat this situation like a game,
Yeah.
right? And so rather than tears coming down, it's laughter. It's laughter, right? And so for me, man, that was kind of that whole situation behind that. I just wanted to trick him into thinking that this whole thing was a game, so he didn't have to ask other questions like, man, why is our hot water off as well too?
Wow, man. And I understand that, like, and I also agree that you wanted him to have childhood moments, but you were child yourself, brother, at that time. Even if you're saying that, like, you grew up fast, but you were like
Absolutely.
14, 16 years old, brother. Did you like were stronger, or you look yourself stronger in front of me? What was that, man?
Man, my perspective shifted, right? From an early age, I had always been asking myself questions like, man, what is the purpose of life, right? I was asking those questions early. And so for me, my perspective shifted early because I had to endure some of the hardships. So my view on the world was a little bit different, right? You don't know necessarily what age you are when life forced you to grow up early,
Oh, yeah.
right? So you may say, oh, this is a 15-year-old person, but I may have been 15, but I felt like I had the mindset of someone who was 30, right? And I always, people say it to me all the time, Akeem, you have an old soul. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm saying? Like, what does that mean? And so, but what that meant to me was the fact that I just viewed the world differently. My perspective was different. But there was a lot of things that I had to work out within myself. When you see things you shouldn't have seen early in your life, you develop certain things and certain barriers, and you don't let people in. I was at to a point where I didn't really trust people too much, because everybody that said that they wanted to help me in this position, they would let me down, or it would come in a sense of, man, I want something back from you down the road. So I never really let too many people in, right? Like my high school teacher who I spoke about earlier, I didn't fully trust that man until I was like 17, 18, and I met him when I was 15. But I saw that he was consistent. because I knew that he cared about Akeem the person and not Akeem the athlete, right? Because most people treated that as two different people, even though they're both one and the same. It's the same person. So, man, everything that I went through and go through, it took me a while to be able to fully adjust my mindset and my frame and realize that, you know, I can't go through life by myself.
According to you, first, like, could you just define in your own words, what are the habits for success?
Wow. Well, you know, it's so interesting. I mean, if we just go down and just like say, what does success mean? I think that has kind of changed through my life as well. You know, I think there's when we're younger, maybe we feel like success means, you know, a lot of money and a really good job and certain parameters that maybe we're taught that are important, and they are. But I think what I've learned, you know, having experienced some success in different ways, it didn't always bring me maybe the happiness that I thought it would, you know, crossing that particular finish line or whatever. And so I think the older I get, I just realize, you know, success is just being healthy and happy and having people to connect with and the ability to feel and express our creative you know, needs and desires and to be able to share that. And so what are habits for success? Well, I suppose those are all things that could fall under the umbrella of helping us achieve our own version of success. Now, with that being said, I think I'm going to digress for a second. I think everything's energy and carries a vibration. And so everything that I write about in the book, I feel like is higher vibrational. You know, if you read about it, you apply it, you try to incorporate it into your life, I don't think there's no way that it can really, you know, hinder you. You know what I mean? They're all good, solid ideas that will help you, I think, be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. But this is not the only book like Habits for Success, right? Like you have written other award-winning books. But what you think, like what made this book like special? Like this book became Amazon one of the bestseller book. And last time I checked, it's still in the top 10 in Amazon for the best volunteer work books. Like, what was so special about it, and why you think like it's impacting people's lives?
Well, I think this book. I mean, they're all special just because they're all a part of me, and you know, it was an opportunity for me to share and try to, you know, help by leading by example. But I think this book is kind of a culmination of a lot of things. It was my first publishing deal, so that made it very special. Everything else I self-published. I think this book has been kind of a culmination of just me sitting in the observer's role of my own life experience and sharing what I've learned, kind of where I'm at up to this point in my life and what has worked for me, what hasn't worked for me. And the older I get, I think the more that I shed, just a lot of stuff that can typically hold us back, right? You know, I mean, I think we as humans like to try to control things and maybe look outside of ourselves for the validation that we're all seeking, where you know, as you know, and we all probably know, but it's easier said than done, it's already inside of us. And so I think the further along I've gotten, the more I really can kind of embody that and not look outside and do all those things to try to gain, you know, the happiness that we all seek, that usually when we find it outside of ourselves, it's short-lived. And so as I get older, it's just, I find that I'm able to kind of sit in it in a more sustainable way.
Yeah, well, it's good. Like you mentioned, like you tried to share your journey, and I read your book, like you really put your real life examples in it and try to explain every habit with the example. Like that was so wonderful for that book. Brian, like in one chapter, like in very early of the book, you mentioned that everyone should try to convert their fear into the excitement so that like it can help you for their self-growth. I'm very curious on it. Like, what's your thought on it? Like, why you put that, try to convert your fear
for into the excitement?
Well, for me, you know, I've kind of just been on this journey for the last 12 years. I left my family business 12 years ago, really into the unknown. I did not know what I was going to do. I just felt like I was done growing, and then I was kind of burned out, and I knew I needed a new challenge. And so I accidentally wrote my first book. I've always tried to be the best version of myself, and I was feeling out of balance. So I sat down one day to write down 5 things that I knew that would help me stay in balance, and they did. And then my intuition started screaming, expand the list and write a book. And that was kind of, whoa, okay. So I did that. I made an effort to do that, and it just kind of poured through me. So then I self-published the book, and it didn't sell a whole lot of copies because I didn't know how to sell a book then, but I was also very afraid of speaking in public. And so I knew that if I wanted to share this message, I needed to overcome that fear. So kind of now to answer your question, I knew that there was a lot of gold on the other edge, on the other end of me stepping into that fear. And so I forced myself to do a lot of things to be more comfortable in front of people. I did Toastmasters. I don't know if you have that up in Canada. I think so.
Yeah. I'm the member of Toastmaster like from last year. So
Oh, way to go. Awesome.
Wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I did a couple community college speech classes. I created a workshop, an interactive workshop around my book. I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show with me. And all these things were really scary, but yet I just felt like I was supposed to do it. And I also took an acting class with no plans on acting.
Yeah.
But everything that I did, I kept, you know, I realized I kept landing, and I was still safe, and I wasn't like blowing up or anything, you know, and it started to make me feel alive and empowered. And each step that I kind of broke through that fear, and it got easier and easier and easier. And I still get nervous, you know, it's just the way it is, you know, it's because we care, right? And so that's okay. It's not a bad thing to have. But when I do sometimes get nervous, I just remember it's not about me, it's about sharing me. And that helps me kind of sit in it better. But so, you know, to answer your question, I think I had to step into all those fears to really kind of like move through them. And it led to so many other things that I had no idea were going to be a part of my life. I didn't plan on acting. I didn't plan on, you know, kind of doing what I'm doing, but I just stepped little steps at a time, and they kept leading me to other things. And I just kind of kept following those intuitive nudges.
I mean, like you're saying, like you were scared of acting, you were scared of public speaking, but then you delivered a speech on TEDx. like could you like tell me like how this happened? Like I mentioned in introduction, for public speaker, it's like one of the major milestones. Like you want to share your story with this vast audience.
Yeah.
How you made that happen? And on that same day, why you said like, okay, I have arrived to deliver speech. No, I'm not gonna play small. What?
I just, well, you know, it's another step out of my comfort zone. I've heard of TEDx and TED Talks, but I hadn't really maybe planned on doing one. And I got called out of the blue from a guy I briefly met, and a few years before, and he said, "Hey, I'm curating a TEDx event in Pasadena. Would you like to be a speaker? I think you'd do a good job." And I gulped and I said, yes. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I think the event was 3 months away. So I racked my brain and brainstormed and felt like I came up with a good talk and really worked hard on it for about a month. And then I just practiced the heck out of it for 2 months and just studied it over and over in my apartment, or when I went on hikes. I just kind of kept practicing it until it kind of, you know, I got it memorized. And that was kind of scary, only because I realized during those interactive workshops that I used to give that I was less fearful if I could just show up and speak from my heart and use the energy of the room or questions rather than to regurgitate something. And so this TEDx was being regurgitated kind of, even though I was proud of how I comprised it. So so I had 3 months to get ready for it, and I just kind of put everything else aside and just, it's not like you're just going to go give a talk in front of 100 people. It's, in the back of your mind, it's going to be recorded, and you don't want to make a mistake because it'll be there forever.
One mistake and that's gonna be on the internet. Like, yeah.
Right. One thing I did do that helped me, at the start of the talk, I had an experience while I was driving over there, and I shared that experience, and that helped me ground myself. And I think just by sharing that little bit of vulnerability about a song I heard on the way there that touched me emotionally, kind of about my experience that I was about to have, I shared that story, and that really helped me just kind of, okay. And I just did it, and the lights were on. I couldn't really see anybody, so that probably helped. And I just, before you know it, it's over. And then I'm just like, I feel like 100-pound weight lifted off of me.
So, like, I came here in Canada in December 2017, and I believe like it's almost been a decade for you since you're living here, right? This is our new home now.
Yep.
So I personally believe like if you are willing to act and take action, like, and you can help around you, people around you, Canada will offer you the opportunities. You just have to grab it. Like, that's my perspective. But what's your perspective on it? Like, what's your thought?
You are younger than me in terms of both age and experience in Canada.
Yeah.
You are the best example of what you just said. Act. You need to act. You need to take action.
Yes.
Right? You may have 20 plans, but plans will just sit idle if you don't have any action toward those plans.
Yeah.
So that's it, simple. Like, if you have a plan, you need to act on that plan. That's it.
Yeah.
Opportunity wise, that's why we call Canada a land of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
That's why majority of immigrants, which includes international students,
Yeah.
which includes even refugees, they end up in running their own businesses. That's why they're very successful.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, I know some people who still don't believe like there's opportunity around them. I just feel like they are just not seeing on the right way. You just maybe narrow your vision and focus on one thing, and you would be surprised. Like, there are so much things it was case with me. Like, I narrowed down my vision. I just thought like, okay, this is my layout. I'm gonna go here in 5 years, 10 years. And suddenly, like, opportunities start coming to me, and I just believe it would be the same for everyone. Like, you have to just seeing on the right direction. And
Two things I will say in this. You said focus. There is a lens,
yeah,
and you can actually burn the fabric or paper with the lens.
Yeah.
But that only will happen when you focus that lens.
yeah,
Right? Same thing in life. Same thing in your career. I always say this. Have some good positive people in your life. If you have those positive people in your life who are uplifting, every conversation, every meeting with them, if it is uplifting, you are very lucky to have. And in my life, I do have those positive people and some mentors and also some critics,
yeah,
because you won't go far if you don't have critics.
No,
Some of those critics will actually don't believe in you, but they will be still your best friend,
Yeah.
right? So they are needed. They are needed, right?
They actually like tell you like you are doing this wrong. You
Wrong.
have to make it right.
Yes. So, but that is their vision.
Yes.
But if you concentrate on, no matter whether it is a job or whether it is a career change or whether you are just struggling to find the path while you're settling down in Canada, you just go with one notion that one day you will do it. You have a plan, you are working on that plan, and clear the basic rules. Basic rules are very simple. Do everything in a Canadian way.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, which is the most important thing, as I said, have good mentors. Have good positive people in your life who uplifts you every day.
Yes.
Or you can simply follow them. Like if you follow social media, you follow them. But what I mean, giving a personal touch, like the way you are sitting with me and we are talking, and I have seen your journey. And many people have seen my journey from 10 years, like, I've been in touch with them. So having all that combination of everything will put you at the right orbit, in the right orbit, and you will get what you want. Be it a job, be it a promotion, be it whatever you want to do, except winning lottery.
Yeah.
You will be lucky if you win the lottery, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. we talk about like what international student or maybe immigrant can achieve in Canada. But tell me about yourself. Like when you landed here, did you have any particular target in your mind?
Well,
Like this I have this desire. I have to do
I tell
this.
you, I'll be very honest. I think I have not shared this many times.
Yeah.
But thanks for this opportunity. My only thing was to be a billionaire.
Okay, that's
Money.
Yes.
But I tell you, the moment I landed, that was not even close to me. But the remember my background also, which country and which state I am coming from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very rich state, and there are many NRIs, non-resident Indians. But that money part just faded away on the very first day, not because my dreams were shattered, no. But beyond that, the way our very first day happened, how the life moved on from that day, money part was not even in picture.
Oh.
Right? But that big thing was there, like, it's dollar sign.
But what changes that?
The kindness of the very first day, the very first few hours after landing, the friendliness of people,
Yes.
and the coziness of this place. Though this was our first visit to Canada as a landed immigrant, like me, my family, it changed everything. It changed everything, and then that dollar sign just vanished. It just went away.
Yeah.
And I do believe money is important, but money is not everything.
No,
Right?
it's not. Yeah.
But it is important factor. I don't undermine the value of money. One should earn. One should not undermine this, because that is how we survive. We thrive also,
Yeah.
and we are also in position to help others. Right?
Yeah.
But honestly, I was confident about job. I was confident about money and all that stuff. But I wanted to make big money. Right, that is a kind of a kid's dream, but that was the dream. I'm just honestly sharing with you.
Yeah, no, thank
I
you
have a
so
good
much.
life now. I came from a very good life. I went through that struggle of initial settlement and all, but that was the vision when I came, that I will be multimillionaire.
You're gonna do something. And
Well, yeah, I don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
then you know what, life, you roll, your ball is rolling, your life is rolling, and then you go through that struggle, and then you stand up, you start fresh, you start small, and then
Yeah.
it's a cycle of life. That's it.
that's